Hi, my name is Cindy, and I am Bhuvan Dollywall's third child, and I'm born and raised in Mission Abbotsford.
Okay. About your, can you tell us something about your family's immigration story?
We wouldn't all be here if it wasn't for our grandfather, Bhagat Singh. He was born in 1883, and he came to Canada, and he had sponsored a lot of family members before he came, and he had gone back to India to bring his wife back. And when he came back with his wife, then he had his family in Canada. And my dad was the eldest son, and he had two sisters, which both lived in Canada. One had passed away when they went back to India. And
Okay. So, can you tell us something about your family's immigration story? You were telling us something about your father.
my grandfather, Bhagat Singh, came to Canada in the early 1900s before the Karamara Maru. And my grandpa was born in 1885. He came here in the ship, and that time people used to come in the ships, and he worked here as a mill worker in Abbotsford. After he got here, for a while, as we know, he worked in Abbotsford at Mill Lake. There's a mill there. That's what the lake is named after. And he worked as a mill worker, and he was president at the Gurdwara in Vancouver and Abbotsford. And
Yeah.
Mill was in Abbotsford at Mill Lake, and they had other workers there, and they got lumber to make the temple in Abbotsford on South Fraser Way. That's how it originated, from the mill, and the people that worked there. They did all their volunteer time there to build it. And there said there were some other Germans or something, they volunteered and helped to build the temple.
And can you tell us something more about that? About your father's involvement in that? And
My grandfather was the president, and I don't know anything further about that.
Okay.
Yeah.
No,
I
no
don't
problem.
know before that.
So can you tell us something about your father? Where was he born? When was he born? And he must have shared some stories with you. How was for him to grow up in Canada?
My dad, Bhuvan Singh Dhaliwal, was the first Indo-Canadian child born in Abbotsford and Matsqui. We have his birth certificate, and he was born September 5th, 1930. He had two sisters, and my dad was a person that kept to himself. He was always had to see everybody happy. He gave us everything we had. He never let us feel that we missed out on anything. And he had his own business when we were kids. He had his own trucking business in Mission. We had a farm in Mission, a dairy farm next to the Mission raceway track. And then in 1970 we moved to Abbotsford because they made the bridge there, Mission Bridge. And then we moved to Abbotsford. We had bought a dairy farm there. It was Greywell Dollywall Farms. And then after that, they still had the farm, and then my dad went back to Mission and opened his gas station, his business, and we had that for about 20 years. He ran that, and then he retired. And then we moved to Abbotsford, and he has 6 children, 4 daughters and 2 sons. And my dad was a very calm person. I've never seen him lose his temper. And he was loved by everybody. He helped a lot of his family come from India to Canada. And he was very, you can see something was missing out of his life, because through time we found out when he came back, like he left to India when he went with his dad to visit India, and when he came back he was 18, and that time Paul Dollywall, he brought him back from India, and when he came here he was 18, and that's when he was working in a lumber mill, and then in 1955 I think, it was my mom's dad had met my dad. That's how he met my mom.
What was your mom's dad's name?
And when my dad had gone back to India when he was 4, on the way on the ship, his dad had got sick and passed away. And they had made their voyage back, himself and his 2 sisters and his mom, to India. And when they got to India, their village was Chandanwal. And when they got back to the village, I mean, the story is very sad because they kept the children and not the mom. And then when he grew up, he was mistreated as a child. And when he grew up, our Uncle Paul was in India. He had gone back, he was a wrestler. He had gone back to India and he had seen how my dad was treated. So he says, I'm going to take you to Canada. And I mean, it's a long story. When he came back to Canada again, that's when he was 18 when he came back. I'm going back. And that's when he started working, and he lived in a clubhouse. All guys used to live together, and he used to work. And that's how he met my grandfather, Mota Singh Grewal. And that's how they became, and my mom got married, and through the years, then became partners because his brother-in-laws were very young. They were like 7 and 8 years old. And my grandfather was new to Canada, so he had help from my dad. So together they built a company, which was Grewal Dollywell Farms. First they did Bud's Trucking because they did trucking, sawdust, and dairy farm. And that time there was not very many families, and there was a family in Abbotsford that had donated the land to the temple. Her name was Bosni, and she was like a sister to our grandfather. And that's how we got to know them through the years. I mean, there was not very many people that would help in the community, right? It was a small community, so it was very hard to, get things done. So everybody used to get together and work to do langar at the temple. Everybody used to get their families, and my grandfather used to, bring milk because we had a dairy farm, and then everybody was like a big happy family, all the community, and things were, like everybody knew each other in Abbotsford and in Mission, so it was a nice, happy family, yeah.
Can you tell us something about the community life?
And when growing up, all I could remember is nobody celebrated any Indian functions like Sakhi or, people having kids and celebrating that was a boy or a girl. They celebrated regardless if it was a girl or a boy. Family members got together. Other relatives that were here that were from the same village or the neighboring village. Everybody was like a big family. Everybody used to come to this one house, and all the men used to sit together. All the women used to sit together and just remember their times in India because everybody's kids were young. And it was nothing about what you had compared to somebody else. Everybody was happy, everybody used to share, everybody used to work together. If somebody needed help at their house, they used to go help them. Like, it was different than now. And yeah, our siblings were 4 sisters and 2 brothers. My oldest brother is Jagjeevan, and then my sister Meena, and then myself, and then Ricky, and then Ambi, and then Kimmy. And my oldest brother he was the first person to join the Canadian Forces. He joined in 1976. He joined the Canadian Forces, and he was in there for I think maybe 10 or 15 years. And then from that he joined Air Canada. And then before that he was left to the Lieutenant General. My brother is now he's a pilot for Air Canada now. And my sister is living in Alberta with her husband and family. And my other brother lives in Manitoba with his family. And then my youngest sister is in Victoria with her husband and family. And then me and my middle sister were here in the Lower Mainland still. Nothing has changed. But the community has changed a lot through the years. There was where all the farmland was, it's all housing now. So, it's nice to see history through people, it's good people keep a track of history so kids will know the difference.
Mm.